You're listening to the Uplevel Your Online Business Show, where wealth is empowering, purpose is crucial, and high vibes are non-negotiable. And now, here's your host, certified business coach and practical woo strategist, Sara J Loureiro.
Welcome back to another episode of the Uplevel Your Online Business Show. I have been wanting to address this topic for a while now. I just didn't know how to. I was thinking about doing it in an Instagram story, on an Instagram post, and then I was like, wait, the podcast. This is the perfect place to talk about this. And it is so juicy. I'm so excited to dive into this. I could nerd out on this stuff all day. So, is social media fake? Is what you see online actually real? What prompted this episode was actually, I saw a post from a prominent celebrity that literally said 90% of what you see online is fake. And I was really curious and very interested in this post. And what I think really sparked a lot of my interest from it was the shareability of it and how it was shared a lot of times. And from what perspective would you need to be in order to share something like that as well? And so I want to kind of talk about the good and the bad, the beautiful and the ugly parts of social media. I definitely have a definitive answer to this, and I'm going to be talking all about it. I've personally been working online for almost 10 years now. And what I find really, really interesting is that the answers to this question are kind of all over the place, and it really depends on who you ask in terms of what type of answer that you're going to get and what context you provide for, well, what type of social media are we talking about in terms of fakeness? And the context that I'm going to talk about here, which might not have been the exact same context for this prominent celebrity, but the context that I'm going to talk about here is in specific whether or not you can make money and good money online, and whether or not everyone who's saying that they make good money online, whether or not those people are actually creating false statements, or if what we're seeing is actually the truth. Some of the answers to this might actually shock you. But this is why I love it, because as you listen to this episode, my hope is that you get a really great perspective on what is real and what is not real, and why you probably shouldn't just take this as a black and white type of question, as you shouldn't, or as none of us really should with anything in life. Everything really is 50 shades of gray. So let's dive into it. Is social media fake? And so when you ask that question, I think you also have to give the context for it, right? Of what are we talking about when we talk about fake? Of course, we all know that there are filters online. Of course, we all know that there's crazy amount of Photoshop. And I think of course we know that you can compare yourself to other people. And if you're not careful, while you're comparing yourself to other people, you can start to judge yourself based off of someone else's highlight reel. I think all of these things are very well known. And I would say, especially for my listeners, these things are really well known. What I actually want to dive into in terms of social media and the fakeness or the illusion of it is more so the income that you can generate online and who truly is generating an income and who is not. And I have had so many conversations about this just because I work online full time. I've been working online full time for over 6 years now, which is so crazy to me because I used to have a 9-to-5 almost for the exact same amount of time. So I was in a 9-to-5 for 6.5 years. Now I've worked online full time and been self-employed full time for 6.5 years. And I can definitely say that there's a huge shift when you actually start working for yourself and when you actually put yourself out there. And that's one of the first things that I'm going to say is that no one who is not putting themselves out there really truly understands the way that the online industry works. And so I think it's very easy for someone who's in a 9-to-5 or who is in a business where they're not completely online to be like, oh, that's all fake. That's all a scam. Those influencers, they're not actually making money. because they provide those black and white statements on it because they truly don't know how online businesses are created and how they're monetized. And one of the most interesting things that I've found over being in online business for the past 9 years is that the people that you think are making it big oftentimes aren't the people who are actually making it big. And on the flip side, then you find out that some people are making it big and they're doing really, really well. And you look at their social media accounts and you're like, I would have had no idea, right? Like, you're not even talking about your income statements. I would have had no idea that you're making that much money or whatever. And I have had the privilege of talking to a lot of people about these things in confidence. And so even on sales calls that I've gotten on with potential clients, where I've gotten on sales calls with potential clients who have these beautiful Instagram feeds and they have all of this engagement, like they're constantly on there, and they come to me on a sales call and they say, I've made no money. I'm barely generating any money with my profile, but then their profile looks like it would be the bomb. It looks like everyone would want to sign up to work with that person. And it's usually because they're missing some really, really key points of conversion within their profiles. And then on the flip side, I have other clients who come to me who are like, I'm already making 10K a month. And then I look at their social media and they have like 100 people in their Facebook group. And I'm like, what? How is this happening? And they literally tell me, oh, okay, well, I focused on one really perfect fit, ideal client. I didn't get into the weeds with other things for my business. I really focused. I really simplified. Now I want to expand, but I don't really know how to expand. And it's really incredible because some people really do monetize their platforms and really do make a lot of money online coaching. And they do it so simply. I've had clients who come to me who say, I'm making around $15,000, $20,000 a month right now, just doing SEO. I'm only doing search engine optimization. I have a little bit of my Instagram that's working for me as well, but mostly, it's this other thing. I want to get on social media. Then I have other clients who come to me who, like I said, they have like 100, 200 people in their Facebook group and they're totally killing it. And then I have other clients who come to me who have 40,000 Instagram followers and they're struggling. And it's like, what is the secret ingredient here? What is really going on? And I just find it so interesting because you really don't know. Just from looking at someone's profile, you really have no idea how effective they actually are being. And I think one of the most interesting places here is really within business coaching. And one like kind of tea that I'd love to spill here is I have been shocked with some people who are in the industry who are purporting that they make specific things or they're making specific claims about how much they make or how much their clients make that are completely false. And those things I think are ruining it for everyone else in the industry. And I can remember a few years back, I got on a sales call with a girl who was doing coaching and, she had a really, really great call with me. She made it seem like she was going to sign up. And then on the call, she had told me, I've had no clients. I'm literally starting from zero. I don't know what I'm doing with my marketing, a whole bunch of stuff. Then a few days later, I see her posts and I see her stories, and it's all about how, specific marketing strategies like, creating relationships in the DMs, that doesn't work. And people should stop doing that. And, she's this really credible person. And if you want 10K months in your business, you can't do relationship building in the DMs. And I was like, you make no money. You literally just told me a few days ago, you make no money. And now you're shaming other people on their strategies when you don't even actually know what you're talking about. And that's when I realized with that and with other circumstances where I've seen people who are like, yeah, I made 15K, last week. And then when you actually talk to them, they just had $15,000 in people saying that they would pay them, but they have no contract signed and they have no payments made. And so I actually knew of someone once who talked about her 70K week. She said she had a 70K sales week. And it was literally just that, I think it was like 7 people because she had a 10K offer. It was 7 people who came back to her and said, yes, I want to do this with you. And some of those people hadn't even signed contracts with her. and, posted online saying she had a 70K week. And I was like, but that's not a 70K week. And technically in sales, in coaching, it's for not even just a contract, because to me, anyone can sign a contract. A client is only a client once they pay you. Once they pay you some sort of money that puts them in the game. So for me, it's usually, if they're not paying me at least $500, they're not considered a client yet. And I'm not posting about that. And I'm not going to talk about that in my feeds because there's a huge lack of transparency there. Now, I think that different people have different ways of showcasing their expertise and showcasing their credibility. And that's when you have to be really, really careful with what you see. What I've also seen a lot of people do, and I think that this is a really, really unfortunate thing, is they'll be talking about money and they'll be talking about money mindset and they'll be talking about how to get so good with your money manifestation. And on the back end, these people are completely broke and they're in tons of debt. And so what I always say as well is you want to make sure that you are coaching and you are creating from a place that feels really credible to you, right? Because if you can barely pay your rent and if you know that you have like really, really bad credit and you have not been able to figure that out and work that out, then for you to then go and teach someone else money mindset concepts for them to be really, really wealthy, to me personally is really at conflict with internal values. But I see it happening all the time. And I think it's because there's such a desperation with a lot of people to make money and to make money relatively quickly to the point where they really have to stress on things that they don't know a lot about. And one thing that I talk about a lot with my clients who are business coaches, and I don't have too many clients who are business coaches, which is really interesting to me. But the ones that are, I always say, you don't have to tell people that they can make 10K a month. You don't have to be another person in that line of people who was like 10K months. I remember one time I had a business coach acquaintance who was talking about like 6-figure courses, but she'd never made 6 figures from a course and she'd never helped a client make 6 figures from a course. So what ends up happening is when there's so much of that marketing with so little credibility for it, the market starts to get sophisticated. So you and I start to say, well, okay, there's so many people talking about 6-figure courses, but like, where's the proof in that? Where's the credibility in that? Where are the testimonials in that? How can you really and truly tell me and teach me the system that is going to help me to get there? And I've had to be very careful too with the types of people who I hire in terms of coaches, because I've also gotten into coaching agreements with people who purport to have made specific amounts of money. And then when I actually go in and start coaching with them, I realized that I was actually making more money than them within that calendar year. And not to say that there's anything wrong with that, but I think that there is a very huge lack of transparency, and it's not with everyone. So that's another thing that I'd also want to say. I feel like a lot of people can listen to this aspect of this podcast episode and just shut it down and be like, guys, it's all fake, right? Like everyone is just like really messing with their numbers. Everyone's like cooking their books, their profit and loss isn't actually what they say it is. And that's actually not true at all. In fact, I would say that the majority of the coaches that I know online are actually doing really well, and they're very transparent. The majority of people. And I have coached hundreds of coaches now. So if I say the majority of my clients and the majority of people that I know and the majority of other business coaches and acquaintances and friends that I've made are really transparent, that's a really great sign. And I've been doing this for 9+ years. So I know the ins and outs of a lot of people's businesses. I know what they tell me. I know what they come to me with in confidence. And I can definitely say that the majority of the people that I've come across are legitimate. There's probably about the 20% that aren't. And sometimes you can tell, sometimes unfortunately they just like fake it really, really well. I do think that within a lot of those cases, karma will come back to them and people will start to see. And of course, then there's also the level of social media where, I mean, even if you're listening to this and if you're a business coach and you're telling people that they can make 10K months and you're like, oh my God, I've never made 10K months. Now I feel like crap. I wouldn't worry too much about those things. And in fact, what I usually tell my clients who are business coaches, by the way, who have never made 10K months and who want to sell that is I always say, okay, well, what can you sell on? What can you get really, really confident behind? And sell on that. So I remember I had a client who had her like landing page for her email list convert at 90%. And she had, I think, like at least 50 people go through it. It was converting at 90%. And I was like, you need to talk about this. This could be your email freebie, you know, like how to create messaging on your landing page so that you can convert more people, right? Because that was her skill set, was getting the right messaging and getting the right messaging, the right words in the right places. And so can she help someone make 10K months from that? Absolutely. But it needs to come from that place where she feels a lot of confidence. And another thing that I wanted to say with that is marketing truly has to be simplified in order for it to be effective. So it's also not that if you see someone who's saying, yeah, I had 100K months or I'm making 100K months, and then all of a sudden they stop making it. It's not false that they were making 100K months within a 6 months time period. And then they just decided that they wanted to scale back down their business. It's just that it's such more effective marketing if someone says, I was making 100K months or I'm making 100K months. And then technically it would be too diluted for them to say, but I also spent this amount of money on Facebook ads, and I also had this amount of people ghost me on sales calls, et cetera, right? So much more effective when your marketing is straightforward and to the point and simplified. And so what ends up happening is, because all of social media is technically marketing, what ends up happening is it ends up being that highlight reel. And it ends up being that highlight reel both for, you know, businesses and coaches and for any other place in the industry, where it's just like you have to present your best self. And unfortunately, with a lot of things, expressing your best self can mean there is just a lot that's taken out of context, right? It's kind of like reality TV. They really only have time to show you 1 hour an episode. And in that 1 hour of an episode, they're taking 200 hours of footage and they're trying to tell the exact same story that is most accurate, right? Then you can also say that there's a lack of transparency in terms of the way that they tell a story, but they're trying to create the most accurate story that has some sort of a viewpoint. And so when you're only presenting highlight reels, which is literally all of media, you lack a lot of context into how that thing was created. And it's not that people are lying and it's not that they're fake. It's just that they're severely lacking context. But on the flip side, if you had all of the context for every single influencer that you followed or for every single coach that you followed, you probably wouldn't be following them because it would probably be very boring. And that's another point that I want to make, and something that a lot of people who aren't in online business just don't understand, is that it's not that people intend to be very intentionally have a lack of transparency, for the lack of a better way of saying it, but it's not that people intend to have a lack of transparency and that people actually intend to lie, although I do think that some people really do intend to lie because of their own insecurities. But most people are doing it to simplify. Most people are doing it to simplify because when you can simplify, you can expand. And so what ends up happening is we have all of this context for our own lives. And we have all of this context in terms of like, I made a 10K month, but, right? I made a 10K month, but I spent $5,000 in ads. And so that makes me feel really shitty because this other person who's making 10K months, they're buying their Louis Vuitton bag and they're like so excited and so happy they're booking all these flights, but I can't do that because I wasn't as profitable with them as them. But what we do when we're doing that and what we do when we compare is we're comparing our complete full context to only the highlight that they're presenting to us. So we have no idea if that other person who made a 10K month actually only profited $2,000 and they bought their Louis Vuitton bag with only that $2,000 and then they put their holiday on a credit card. You just have no idea. And so that's why you can't really compare yourself and you can't really suggest that what someone is doing is fake. And what I would also say here, and something that I truly find fascinating, is sometimes you might think that someone is doing something that's super, super fake, but they're like the realest person out there. And as an example to this, I have known people who have been in the online space who've been like absolutely killing it, and they just manage their money really, really well. And they manage their personal image really, really well online. And so you might look at it, you might think like, oh, that can't possibly be real. Or, you know, if someone makes a $20,000 month within their second month of coaching, you're like, that's not real, that's fake. But it's totally real. And the person has, you know, it's not like they need to prove it to anyone, but they do. You know, they have all of the credibility in the world for that. And just because of the fact that something doesn't seem doable and it doesn't seem normal, doesn't mean it's fake. And I want to let that sink in, because I feel like for a lot of us, ego is going to want to make us think that when something seems like it's really, really good and it's such a shiny object that it's fake, but let it sink in that sometimes that could actually be real. And if that is in fact real, then what does that mean about the possibilities for you to have that thing? And I really want that to sink in, because I think that the prime concept of like social media is fake is to just completely knock down any type of effort that anyone is doing online for the sake of making other people feel better about themselves that they didn't actually do it themselves. To me, there are really two camps here. There is that camp that, you know, just want to feel better about themselves, that they're not going after the things that they really want to do, so they just need to slam other people for it. And then there's also the camp that I definitely exist in and am a part of, which is the camp that is constantly comparing themselves to other people online, comparing themselves to other progress. And a lot of that progress, we severely lack context for. And so either we lack context or a lot of that lack of context is unfortunately also fake. And so we're comparing ourselves to, I would say, 20% fake, but then also the other 80% that we're comparing ourselves to severely lacks context. And another thing that I really wanted to say here, because I find this stuff so fascinating, is that there are people who are doing the randomest stuff online, and they have such profitable businesses that sometimes it completely blows my mind. And I want to specifically talk about influencers here, just because I feel like they get a lot of bad rep. And I think it's because a lot of people just think that like, well, anyone can be an influencer and anyone can make money. And, you know, all they're doing is just lying and showing themselves online and like posting pretty pictures of themselves. And I think that couldn't be farther from the truth, especially for really prominent people who are really, really good at personal branding. And what I think is really fascinating here is when you own a personal brand and you're really smart about it and you're really intelligent about who you are appealing to, you can become very wealthy in these times with a personal brand. There are really good influencers out there who, like, some people are in personal training, some people are in nutrition, some people are, into fashion. Some girls just have very pretty looks. And so they really play on that. And a lot of them work with brands and they have their brand partnerships. And some of them actually start creating their own products and they start creating their own ebooks and they start creating their own apps. And then that's when you really start to see the monetization of what they're doing, and how impactful it can actually be. And what I find really interesting about a lot of these people is then you get the people who are not online and you get the people who are not making money online because, for whatever reason, they didn't want to do it themselves. But you get the ego that comes in from them and they say, well, if that's all fake, that girl, she's not going to have, that amazing body in 5 years or 10 years. So what is she going to do then? She quit her teaching job to do this thing online. And now she's, how long is that truly going to last? And I think what people don't realize is that these are the new brands and these are the new products of our time. And even if one day this girl who went on a reality TV show, who's now an influencer, is going to get old, her personal brand and her products are going to live on. because of the credibility that she's now going to create from her products. And she's also going to create a very valuable client base and customer base from those products. And so that's just going to keep on branching off to more and more and more opportunities that she wouldn't have had she not became an influencer, had she not started creating content. And I think it's a really common myth as well to just be like, oh, well, all of these influencers are lying. They're fake. They're, purporting to be some specific thing. They're all using filters. They're all, they're not telling the truth. They don't even look the same in real life, or they don't act the same in real life. And I'm sure that could be a really big thing with the content creator world. I mean, I don't know that world as much as I know the coaching world. And at the same time, there are really, really intelligent women and people in general who are profiting huge off of their personal brands and doing things that are very in line with their values and their personal integrity. And I think that saying that everything on social media is fake is really doing a disservice to all of the people who have very genuine and credible businesses out there. And not only that, but you are doing yourself a disservice when you say that everything online is fake, because then you're also blocking your potential to do something similar, for you to become successful, because now you're just blocking the possibility that any of that could be real. And I'd love for that to sink in for a moment, because I think this is like I said, this is such a juicy topic. I am spilling the tea, but I'm also spilling the tea right back at the reasons why I think a lot of people like to shame the online space. So there's no right or wrong answer here. There's so many things that are fake. Of course, they're filters. There are people who literally change the dimensions of their bodies before they hit post. There are people who fake cry in the name of attention. But they're also really smart, like super intelligent people who are going into these industries and who are really owning who they are and creating personal brands that are going to outlast any type of 9-to-5 that they were ever able to be in. And I think that a lot of people get a lot of a bad rep for that, because a lot of people who do shame them for it, it's just they're shaming themselves for something that they never had the courage to do. So is social media fake? I would say in the coaching industry, if I had to give like an objective opinion, I would say 20% or maybe more, because I do generally speak to people who are very authentic and in high integrity. I don't generally, I've never really been in circles of people with like low levels of integrity, but I can say from my point of view of working in this industry, I would say at least 20% of it is very forced and not actually real. And so sometimes when I see that, it's really disheartening. It's really shocking. And if you ever wanted to get more of a perspective on, okay, well, what's real and what's fake and what's like, how do I know, right? Like, how can you point it out? I think it's really difficult to completely point out whether one person's business is a sham and whether another person's business is making a load of money. I think what it will ultimately come down to for a lot of people is, how many clients have they had? Do they have video testimonials with those clients? I wouldn't even count on engagement anymore on social media, just because I think that engagement has changed so much over the years. And so that's another thing. I sometimes get trolls in my account who will be like, oh, you bought all your followers. And I actually didn't buy any of my followers. I have 19,000 followers, but because a lot of them came from Facebook ads, a lot of them just have like very low engagement with my brand. And that's fine, because I know people who have incredibly high levels of engagement with their brands, and they make no money. So engagement isn't even a tool that you can really start to measure from in terms of how successful someone is. And then that's the whole thing to me in terms of being able to judge, is you really don't know. And I don't think you will ever know. Hopefully, intuitively, you will never come across someone who's like completely out of integrity. And hopefully that would never happen to you. I know that those cases sometimes happen. I also know that they're pretty rare. But other than that, what I always try to do is just stay in my own lane. So does it matter if I know whether or not that person actually had a 6-figure launch? Does it matter if I know whether or not that person who had a multiple 7-figure year, how profitable they actually were? Doesn't matter. Am I ever going to know? I'm probably never going to know. And it means nothing to my own life. All I can see is that a measure for me, or does that help me to expand into what I believe is possible for me? Yes? Then cool. I'm going to invite that into my levels of expansion and the people that I'm going to look at in terms of how much I can expand for myself. But in terms of me comparing myself to them and allowing myself to judge either myself or them when I don't have all the context, is just really difficult. And that's why it's so important when you are an online business owner to really just stay in your own lane. And not only stay in your own lane, but I think it's also really helpful when you do hire a mentor and when you do have your own coach is ask them, how did they feel in specific circumstances? And once you start to understand that your coaches are also real human beings, and once you understand that your coaches sometimes also have low profit months because it happens, right? They're human. Then you start to say like, okay, so there's nothing wrong with me, right? If all these other people have failures, there's nothing wrong with me. But a lot of the times you're also going to have to go out and ask those people and ask people that you trust, like what are the failures that you've had and how have you overcome those things? And that can really help you with understanding the context for which you're comparing yourself to. So I hope that all of this helps. And I really hope it gave you a little bit more of a positive outlook on social media and what to spot, what to look out for, how to tell a bit more as to like whether or not something could be fake, but also just to inspire you to understand that there's so much of it that is real, and that can serve as an expansion for all of us who are looking to uplevel our businesses. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll catch you next time.
Thanks for listening to the Uplevel Your Online Business Show. If you enjoy our show and would like the show notes and free goodies about how to grow your online coaching business, head over to sarajloureiro.com for more information. We hope you'll tune in next time.